Today is day 9. Yesterday marked the end of the first week, and this first week has actually been really terrible, but not because of the diet. The diet itself is actually not that bad. It's been quite manageable, but what made the week so bad was my allergies. My sinuses have been extremely congested. It even caused my head to hurt a lot. It's been bothering me the entire week, but I did go to the doctor yesterday, and she had prescribed some medicine, which has been helping a lot. And while I was at the doctor, I also got a checkup, and I'll be using the information from the first checkup and compare it to the information I get from the checkup afterwards when the experiment ends. And I had gotten just a few things checked out by the doctor. One thing I got checked out was my blood pressure, which came out to be 114 over 65 millimeters of mercury. And what those two numbers mean is that they measure the blood pressure in the arteries when the heart beats and contracts. So the top number, 114, is the systolic number, which measures the pressure in the arteries and the heart is beating. And the bottom number, which is 65 for me, is the diastolic number, which measures the heartbeat when the heart is not beating, in between beats. So it came out to be 114 over 65, which is actually a bit higher than what I normally get whenever the doctor checks my blood pressure. Usually I get somewhere around 100 over 60, but she said the change was very minuscule and it's not something I have to worry about. She also added that reason why the blood pressure might have been slightly higher was because I was feeling extremely sick. I had also gotten my height checked out. I came out to be 5'10 and 3/4, but let's just say it's 5'11. And I also came out to be 143 pounds, which is actually quite normal for me. Since October, I have been fluctuating between 138 and 145 pounds. And a 7-pound fluctuation might seem like a lot, but it actually isn't because if you weigh yourself in the morning and night, there actually is a very big difference between the two. I highly suggest you try it out yourself. A lot of times, there have been times where I weigh myself in the morning, I come out to be 140. I weigh myself late in the day, and I come out to be 144. So the change, it does happen a lot. So in that regard, 7 pounds isn't very much of a difference. Also, I wasn't able to give an introduction to the experiment due to the poor audio, and as you can see, I have gotten my microphone, so it shouldn't be a problem now. So I'll give you the rundown of the experiment. The experiment is a 50-day long project where I live off of a plant-based diet. And that just means I live off of foods which are only plant-based. So that means it's not like vegetarianism, which allows eggs or certain kinds of dairy products. So it's only stuff like vegetables, grains, etc. Also, this project only focuses on the dietary aspect of veganism, so I won't be abstaining from using certain animal products like leather. And here's my initial hypothesis. Honestly, I don't think that the experiment will have too much of an impact on my body, mainly because before the diet, I consider myself to be fairly healthy in the sense that I didn't really eat much processed foods. I actually ate a lot of vegetables and grains in comparison to the amount of meat I ate. And ever since I was young, my parents had always preached to me about how I had to have a very balanced diet, and eating too much of one thing wasn't very good. And I've been brought up that way, and it's worked for me so far. I mean, I've never had any phases of my life where I've been extremely unhealthy. So all in all, I don't think that the experiment will bring too much of a change. And now that I've explained the experiment, I'll give you a rundown on veganism, and I'll dispel some misconceptions about veganism as well. A vegan, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is a person who does not eat any food that comes from animals and who does not use any animal products such as leather. In addition, many vegans are animal rights activists and constantly try to convert more people into vegans and spread the word on injustices on the animal industry. That added part actually isn't in the dictionary definition, but I thought that would be nice to add. This is not true by definition because, as stated before, vegans abstain completely from using any animal products. However, a vegetarian, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is a person who abstains from eating meat. That's just meat, not animal product. Also, there are different kinds of vegetarianism, such as lacto-vegetarianism, where people live off of a plant-based diet, which includes dairy, or the lacto-ovo diet, which includes a plant-based diet, dairy, and eggs. So vegetarianism, in a sense, is a more flexible term used to talk about various kinds of plant-based diets, whereas veganism is a very strict diet which only consists of plant-based foods. It's actually not true because most vegan foods are things like pasta, vegetables, and beans, which are actually very cheap and many times can be cheaper than most meats which you buy at a store. But the argument that certain kinds of fake meats or synthetic foods which cater to vegan needs are more expensive does make a lot of sense since most of these foods come from smaller businesses and do tend to cost a bit more. But vegans don't require many of these processed or synthetic foods, since most vegans, in fact, actually advocate what they call a raw diet, meaning that they only want to consume foods which are not processed or only put it through a few stages of being processed. It's actually quite the opposite. For example, 86% of the land cleared in the Amazon rainforest is for pasture land for livestock, and only 4% of it is actually used for soybeans. Also, most of the land worldwide is used to grow food for livestock. 80% of the world's soybeans are used to feed animals, and it takes 16 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of meat. Also, a recent Cornell study had actually found the United States alone could feed 800 million people with the crop they grow for. In fact, livestock consume more than 5 times the amount of grain than the entire American population. So technically, if we didn't have any animals, we'd actually have more food than we currently have. The United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, states that women need 46 grams of protein a day and men need 56 grams a day. And actually, that isn't as much as you might think it is. A cup of cooked lentils has 18 grams of protein, nearly half of what women need a day and what a third of men need a day. A cup of raw, not cooked soybeans has nearly 68 grams of protein, which is more than what men or women need in their diet per day. The American Dietetic Association states that vegans tend to have lower blood cholesterol levels, lower blood pressure levels, lower BMI, lower risk of heart disease, and lower cancer rates. In addition, the American Heart Association, or AHA, states that the vegan diet can be healthful and nutritionally sound as long as they are planned to include essential nutrients. Just like any other diet, you can be perfectly healthy and possibly healthier while abstaining from certain kinds of foods if you ensure that you are consuming the adequate amounts of required macronutrients, being carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. But it is very possible to sustain a very healthy diet and eat meat. In fact, the AHA recommends that people consume certain lean meats like chicken breasts and seafood in order to maintain a lean diet. Also, studies that show a correlation between certain kinds of diseases and meat consumption usually pertain to red meat or processed meat, not necessarily all kinds of meat. For example, a Q&A published by the World Health Organization, or WHO, in October 2015 states that there was a correlation discovered between consuming red or processed meat and cancer. However, the article clearly states that this was a study only examining the effects of consuming red and processed meat, not necessarily all kinds of meat, such as poultry and seafood. You can be healthy and eat meat, but you don't necessarily need meat to be healthy.